Session.
I'd like to call tonight's special study session of November 6th, 2023 at 6:54 p.m. And I call on Mr. Doug.
Mr. Doug here.
Mr. Doug.
Yes. Myself and Robbie Wright and Andrea Marquez are going to give an update for you tonight on the White River restoration. As soon as we get the PowerPoint presentation up.
Not a PowerPoint, it's PDF.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff.
Okay, so we wanted to come to you tonight to give you an update on some things that have been transpired in the last month. And to remind council, we are here tonight to talk about one of the 4 projects on the full solution that we have, which is the large restoration project, the habitat project, as we've been calling it. So in January of 2016, the city formed a dialogue group that it comprised of both the Muckleshoot and Puyallup tribes, and also at that time Pierce County. And then as time has gone on, this has morphed into a lot more stakeholders as we've had other things that we were doing within our project, like Cascade Water Lines came on board a long time ago, as well as BNSF. And so to date, we've had over 55 dialogue group meetings with this group. And that through those meetings, we've talked about the design of the project. We've talked about stakeholders like both tribes, what were their needs and wants out of the project, and incorporated those into our design. And then BNSF came along and wanted to do their 10 sighting tracks. And so here first part of October, we heard from BNSF unofficially that they were out of the project. No longer they could afford the project, or whatever their reasons were, they decided to pull out of the project. So that has a ripple effect, right? So we were joint applicants in our application to the Army Corps. And so since they notified us on October 23rd, we have pivoted, knowing that we needed to, well, let me back up. During this time, BNSF says they're out. The Army Corps says, hey, city and BNSF, here's a draft copy of your permit. So we're kind of scrambling at this point in time, because we're like, we finally got our permit and now BNSF is not out of it. And a lot of the language in the permit relied on BNSF to do certain components of the project based on their 10 sighting tracks. So the next steps for us is to get what's called a transfer permit from BNSF to the city. And so there's a process for that. And, we have to have some conversations, and have had some conversations with BNSF on what that looks like. We also have to do some modifications to our permit, removing BNSF from a lot of those obligations that they were going to have with their 10 sighting tracks, and show the Army Corps of Engineers that we are responsible for the permit as it is without BNSF there. So there's some work that needs to be done there. There's also some work that needs to be done through our consultant, which they need to redesign the project after BNSF is pulled out. Now there's an additional basically 250 feet that we're gaining back to our restoration project, which was the original vision of the project and what the tribes initially bought off on. So we have had communications with the tribes and communicated with them that they're out of the project. BNSF being they, BNSF is out, and that the city is moving forward to get this project completed. And so you will see in December a supplement for our consultant, NSD, Natural Systems Design, to complete the design of the project. And we're still hoping, and our schedule is that we will begin construction in in the spring, summer of 2024. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, permit modification, redesign, and get the plans that ready for bid. But with that, I'm gonna bring up Robbie Wright and he will talk about the next few slides.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. And thanks, council, for having us here to update you again on this. This is a big project for Public Works. So again, I'm Robbie Wright. I'm in Public Works Engineering Department. So Doug gave some backstory about the railroad backing out, but what does that mean for our path going forward? Like he mentioned, there's a big redesign that has to happen. And part of that's going to lead to some good things and some bad things. Some of the good things is there was 11 acres of property, which we pulled out of the purchase and sale agreement to Principal to give that space to the railroad. That land is now available to sell back towards Principal, which is part of what the development agreement and purchase and sale agreement stuff that's coming up at a future council meeting is about. That'll net just under $7 million and stuff, but we'll be able to put some soil there, which will save the project money. One of the other good things about that is our Sumner Link Trail is no longer going to have a 10-track eyesore next to it. That was always kind of a hard spot for us. It's a great thing with the railroad taking a lot of our dirt and contributing financially, but you're going to have to see all their tracks as you ride your bike and walk along the trail. So that's a pro in my opinion. The other good thing is, like Doug mentioned, we're able to pull that 250 feet back into the project. It's going to add almost 30 acres of restoration back into it. So we're going to be over 200 acres of floodplain. So it's going to be more storage, so better protect our industrial area. But the bad part, and probably the most obvious one, is the design and project cost. Like we said, we were at a point where we were just waiting for that permit, and then we were ready to go out for bid. Well, we got that permit, and now we have to do a redesign. So that supplemental will be a pretty large one, but our consultant is all hands on deck to get something ready to put out to bid early 2024, so we can meet our construction timeline. The project costs, like I said, they were doing a pretty significant part of the work, which I'll show in a minute. And the legal agreements, we talked a lot about the 3-party agreement in previous updates. Now it'll be the 2-party agreement, just City and Cascade agreement. So a lot of that will still kind of apply, and I think Andrea will dive maybe a little bit more into that later, but there's some work on the legal agreements we have to do. So project footprint, there's just kind of an overview. The 29 acres will be reclaimed for the project, and kind of highlighting the 11 acres of area that we can sell to the developer. Financial, like I mentioned, finance is probably the largest part of impact for this. Is how do we fund that big $16 million slice of the pie that the railroad was covering? We think we got a solution for it. So looking forward, I highlighted and read the area that the railroad was covering. A lot of that's additional money from Pierce County Flood Control Zone District. They've been very supportive of our project all throughout multiple years, giving us, as you see, $19 million over their 6-year capital improvement plan. That additional land getting sold to Principal is a potential for the project income. We show 2 parts of golf course sale. One of those we think we can offset with a request we have in to the state for additional money to our PSAR grant. So that would be about another $2.9 million in PSAR funding that was left over from a different project. And additional stormwater utilities. So we've been doing the utility rate study, and we included an additional $4 million in the stormwater utility to try to help fill this gap. That rate study will be presented at an upcoming council meeting, so you'll see what that impact has. And that's sort of the financial update, and I'll turn it over for Andrea to go through the rest of it.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yep.
Thank you. I don't want to belabor points that have already been made, but now that BNSF is out, that freed up, like Robbie and Doug said, about 11 acres of land that was going to be sold to the railroad for their sidetracks. Instead, the golf course purchaser approached the city and said, we'd be interested in that land. It will help us expand our parking. not additional building space, because you may recall, some of you, the litigation with the Growth Management Board that resulted in a settlement on the golf course development and restricts the development to a certain square footage. So this will not result in additional building space. This will result in additional parking and drive turnaround space. At $13 a square foot, which is the same price that the rest of the land is being sold to the golf course purchaser for, it will net an additional $6.3 million.
Yeah, would you go to the next?
Oh, do I have it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't see the clicker. So the property that we're talking about is shown on this image in orange. That is the strip of land that comprises approximately 11.1 acres. In order to add that back in to the square footage of property being sold to the golf course developer, we will require an amendment to the purchase and sale agreement. I think this is about the 16th iteration of the purchase and sale agreement, but hopefully the last. And the purpose of the amendment is to include this additional square footage and increase the purchase price. What this will also require is an amendment to the development agreement between the city and the developer. We entered into a development agreement 4 years ago. As a reminder, a development agreement helps vest projects to the land use controls that are in place at the time of the agreement. So it helps provide certainty for these large projects on impact fees and the zoning and state codes that they will be subject to. In order to include this additional acreage, we will have to amend the legal description in the development agreement. And while we have it open, staff are recommending a one-time additional extension of 5 years by no fault of the purchaser. This has taken longer than we all hoped it would. And now that BNSF is backed out at the 11th hour from their portion of the project, we have yet again another delay because we have to go back and get the permit modified. So the golf course developer will probably not meet the deadlines in the development agreement. And like I said, by no fault of their own, we're recommending one additional 5-year term. State law limits development agreements to 15 years. So this extension would have it be a 10-year agreement.
So we just wanted to re-highlight some of the dates of when these things are coming back to council. I guess I'd like to point out that I made a mistake on the 12/4 date. It's actually going to be at the 12/11, the special council meeting. Part of that's due to additional time we need to work with the consultant to make sure our scope and fee is rock solid as we go forward, because they're giving us the cost to finish the thing out. But I think from there, we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor.
What kind of person develops, or what kind of company develops this kind of project? Because this is a natural looking project, isn't it? Moving of dirt and making water and.
Yeah, it most likely is going to be a large earthwork contractor, somebody who's, because that's going to be the bulk of the job, is moving the dirt and shaping it. No different than would happen on, a warehouse site or another large site. So people who do a lot of excavation, most likely they'll get a subcontractor, somebody who really specializes in how to place the logs, how to place the gravel in the streams. There's a lot of those smaller specialty contractors that will probably be brought in as a sub, because I imagine we're going to have some experience working around those kind of things.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So with these changes, is it the Army Corps that gave you the permit, or who gave you the permit? And are the tribes still happy with how things are progressing?
Yeah, the permit was the Army Corps permit. There was a whole slew of permits that fed into that final one, but the core permit is sort of the final one that we sign and does all of it. We're just waiting for final signature from the railroad on that permit, which would transfer the conditions to the city, and then we would amend it.
And then the tribes, have they had any problem about this? Or
We let the tribes know when we heard the railroad was backing out and they were more or less ecstatic, I
Oh.
would say. They were very excited.
Oh.
One of the tribal members turned his camera off in the Zoom meeting. I'm guessing to do a little cheer in the background is my assumption, but yeah, they were very supportive.
Oh, okay, well, that's good to know, because I know it's been a long time getting all these permits and everything, so. Thank you.
Did you have something, Doug? Go ahead, Earl.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm just kind of curious, that long rectangle of soil that will possibly become parking and a turnaround spot for the developer. How much control does the city have over that design?
I don't think we would have any more than we do on the rest of the design. It's more your department, Doug, but it's an area that we really wouldn't be able to sell to anybody else. It's kind of isolated from, I mean, the principal development existing sort of blocks it off from any other possible purchaser we could think of.
And Andrea alluded to it correctly, that it creates more turning movements and parking availability for the trucking industry that's going to be feeding that building. So it's a much more larger area for them to do those turning movements.
Sure. No, I understand that part of it. I'm more concerned when the comment was made that people who use the Sumner Link Trail won't have to stare at 9 railroad tracks. Instead, we get to stare at a parking lot. Then is there going to be screening? Do you know anything about the?
Sure. So the principal development, well, let me see if I can get back to. Okay, so does this have a pointer? So the top part of the green that goes to the east and west, right?
Mhm.
That is where that's where the trail is going through
Okay.
there. And currently our design is for the trail to be a little bit lower than the top elevation of that, so that we have a little bit of a buffer. And then, of course, there will be needing fencing on that perimeter of that development too. So there will be some screening efforts made, yes.
Okay. I just know as I use the trail and I ride by, for lack of a better word, the semis that have backed up almost to the trail and destroyed fences and a lot of garbage and stuff. And I'm hoping that there would be some sort of screening to
Yeah.
preserve that view.
Yeah, so there will be some parking on this bottom section of the development, but it will not be truck parking. It'll be more privately owned vehicles, workers parking. The parking for the truck is on the edges of the building.
And so the city has the design commission, do they have power of approval of what's being designed or what will be designed?
I don't believe this will go to the design commission. It'll be our department that will review that. Yeah,
Okay.
development services will look at that.
Okay.
And it won't make any sense to have truck parking there when the truck movements are up against the building.
Sure.
So the plan that we've seen to date has personal vehicle parking down in this area.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Kurt, you have anything? Nope. Anybody else? Huh? Anybody online have a question? Nope. All right,
Great, thank you.
okay, so you have anything else?
Yeah, I just
Jason?
want to add, this has been a long time coming, and I think it would be remiss if I didn't mention the hours, hundreds of hours of work that Mr. Beagle, Ms. Marquez, Mr. Wright, Mr. Dahlem have put into this project. And to get the core permit is not a small feat, and it is a major, major milestone in this project. So after, what are we at, 12 years now? It's remarkable. So I think they should all be commended for the long hours that they put into this project. And if all goes according to our plan, we'll be putting it out to bid next year, and that's a very exciting time for this city. So thank you to
Awesome.
all of them.
Thank you, guys. All right, no further business. I will end this meeting at 7:12.